Dear me. Evening, everyone. I am a mess. God, it is quite something out here. Quite sunny, actually. Then, of course, I had an issue with my shoes and what have you. My trainers. So big. Hold. Not even 30 seconds in, I've had my first stroke. Anyway, I had shoes, trainers, whatever you want to call them, with holes big enough to stick your hand through. So I've had to buy these clogs. Hopefully now I'll stop the water from getting in. But of course you didn't come here to find out about my new footwear. No, I want to talk a little bit more about the politics of what's happening and what have you. And I've already put out one video, but it's only 4 minutes, so I thought I'd give you another one, because I'm generous. But now don't take that too seriously. Anyway, point is, I want to make a message about Sue Gray being fired by Keir the Traitor Starmer. Now, I don't know what's going on with this. Could be that she was trying to investigate Keir the Traitor Starmer and he had enough. I don't know. But what I do know is Keir the Traitor Starmer will be lucky to see it to Christmas. I've already said it many times and I'll say it here again. I mean, between being a threat to national security, openly taking political prisoners while releasing the killers and piss out into our streets, screwing the elderly out of their winter fuel payment, or sending £600 million of our money overseas to Ukraine. And now Keir the Traitor Starmer is even giving away overseas territories. Yeah. Our own goddamn overseas territories, he's giving it away to people. Seems to me like his allegiance, well, it's obvious it's to the WEF, but it's now becoming even more apparent that it's not towards the very indigenous British people he's supposed to serve. I must be brutally honest, I'm genuinely surprised he's still in office, quite frankly. What I'm not so surprised about is I'm starting to feel the remnants of this fucking rain. Just another day in Norwich, huh? Anyway, I'm very surprised that Keir the Traitor Starmer can still have the audacity to run for power, for Prime Minister, and run in office. The only thing I trust Keir the Traitor Starmer to do is run a country mile when we are in trouble. Oh, and let's not forget the fact that he made a deal with the Sun to basically drop the phone hacking scandal investigation in exchange for them no longer investigating Keir the Traitor Starmer's dodgy deals and what have you with Lord Ali and all that shit. And what makes all of this even worse is the fact that Keir the Traitor Starmer is being pressured into taking more asylum seekers in by the European Union, which, last time I checked, we left those cunts. The only thing we haven't left, which we should have done, is the ECHR. But the more this shit show goes on, the more it looks like treasoner Theresa's bloody brino, i.e. a Brexit in name only. I mean, say what you will about Liz Truss, calling her a lettuce and what have you, but here's the thing. At least Liz Truss realised when she was way out of her depth. And I can tell you free of charge that Keir the Traitor Starmer is way more out of his depth than Liz Truss could ever be. You could literally lock this man in a room with another person, much akin to how some interviews are done, and he's like that prick who sets off a fart and then he stinks up the whole room. And that's how the gas chamber was created. Anyway, he is like that stink that just never goes away. Like Keir the Traitor Starmer just does not, he can't just not read the room. He can't just read the room and be like, why is there so much hatred towards me? Oh, I know why, it's because I'm fucking the British people over. I know there's a whole meme and a joke about how do you tell a politician is lying? He opens, or she opens his mouth, or her mouth. But at this point, you may as well stick that definition, have a meme, and literally Keir the Traitor Starmer's face plastered all over the dictionary definition of that shit. Prime Minister of the working class, more like politician who is a complete farce. Career politician who is a complete farce. Is it illegal of me to say that I would rather have Tony Blair in power rather than Keir the Traitor Starmer? I feel like it probably should be, but that's how I feel right now. I feel like I'd rather have 4 more years of Tony Blair. Tony the war criminal Blair. then put up with another 3 months of Keir the Traitor Starmer. I dread to think what would happen if Gordon the Bully and Blundering Brown, Tony the War Criminal Blair, and Keir the Traitor Starmer, I wonder what would happen if they formed their own bloody coalition. I can already picture the end result. In about 3 months' time, there would be a tombstone. And it would say on this tombstone, "Here lies the United Kingdom." And the epitaph would be, "Buggered and fucked around by career politicians who have more money than sense and care not for the British people." It honestly astonishes me how we could have elected these twats into power. But you know what? There is a way to fight these career politicians and the dictator we have in power, who sits in the houses of treachery, I mean Parliament, or maybe I was right first time, who wants to bugger the United Kingdom until she is literally 6 feet under. There is a way to deal with Keir the Traitor Starmer, and that is for full-fledged unity in 3 weeks' time, on the 26th of October. We all need to unite, every single one of us. And I would implore Nigel Farage, if he's got the balls, whether up here or down there, or in my case both, to actually stand up on stage with Tommy Robinson. And I know some people are going to be like, well, the only reason he does what he did with Tommy Robinson is because he wants to distance himself, because he doesn't want to give the government any ammo and what have you. But here's the thing. If they were to get rid of Nigel Farage, and I've said I'm not going to defend the man, but I am going to say what I feel would happen if they decided they were going to kick him out of Parliament for standing up on stage with Tommy Robinson. I tell you what would happen. He'd prove Tommy Robinson right, and he'd prove all the British people right, that the establishment, the traitors in Parliament, they only care for DEI, wokery, and going against the supposed far right, which quite frankly do not exist, unless you want to look at Islam, in which they often cite verses from the Quran which tell them to slay the non-believers and behead them. That it is perfectly okay to beat your wife. That is perfectly fine to use white women as sex slaves. Where it's perfectly okay to give gay people a one-way ticket from the top of the building to the floor. Express. If you want the real far right, take a closer look at Islam. But of course the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks. And you've been waiting for this, haven't you? Anyway, because say it with me, it doesn't suit the narrative. But this deal with the Sun and Keir the Traitor Starmer literally does show unequivocally that the media are all controlled by the richest people in the world, and of course Keir the Traitor Starmer, the establishment. That's what that Sun deal proves beyond any reasonable doubt. And anybody who says otherwise is only fooling themselves and burying their heads in the sand. You'd almost think they were in the Sahara, they do it so much. But we need to unite, all of us. We can't keep dividing ourselves over multiple parties. We can't have a UKIP, a Reform, a Nationalist Party, Patriotic Alternative, etc., etc. We cannot have splits within our group. Not anymore. We're at a stage now where we need to all unite. That's the one advantage the left wing, the far left, have over us. They can form, they can unite, they can basically mobilize and have a decent number of people come out and oppose whatever movements we try to do. That's their one advantage. But if we manage to say, you know what, we need to put our differences aside and come together against the traitorous establishment, their advantage goes. Just like that. If we're able to mobilize tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, there is no shot those NPCs in the left wing will be able to stand up to such a patriotic display from concerned parents and concerned patriots who merely want the best for this country. They didn't go out and riot. They didn't go out of their way to protest against the government, including in Scotland, just to break the law. No, that was hijacked by a bunch of nut jobs, shall we say. Nut jobs who basically wanted to hijack the movement and perhaps even sabotage the movements. No, the real people in those movements were the ones who were being peaceful, and yet they were still attacked by the police, arrested by the police, and persecuted by the courts. While we had Muslims that were going out of their way to attack the police at Manchester Airport, none of which have been charged even to this day. But that's something, again, the mainstream media do not want to talk about. They want to cover up the fact that we do have a two-tier policing system, a two-tier judiciary, a two-tier media, and two-tier government. They don't want you to know about this shit. They don't want the ordinary the ordinary asleep public knowing about this. Because we are the 5%, which last time I checked outnumbers the 4% who are trying to stop us from waking up the 90%. We have the numbers. The left don't. We just don't have the cohesion. But if we change that, everything changes entirely. It's like I said in the past, Keir the Traitor Starmer is terrified of a resistance being able to come up from out of the woodwork. He's terrified of it. They are scared of what would happen if hundreds of thousands of patriots start to unite. Then there is no shot that Islam will be able to take over this country, because we are undergoing an Islamification of this country. That's the cold bitter truth of it, which people, the media, the traitorous establishment, they don't want to admit that, because it would go against their narrative. Maybe this will help, other than making me look like a tit. Anyway, enough about the sunlight. It would scare them if they saw all of us unite against this traitorous establishment. Islam is counting on us being divided so they can conquer. They're a warrior religion, and they're banking on us not being able to unite. I mean, they can't even conquer a single man from Luton, and you know who I mean, Tommy Robinson. And they can't even capture Israel. And the only reason they managed to get Iran was because they had people infiltrate the damn place. Outside of that, they wouldn't be able to conquer shit. They'd be lucky if they'd be able to conquer a Bath, let alone a country like Britain. That's why they're scared. That's why Islam is scared of this movement. That's why our traitorous establishment is scared of this movement. Because we've all seen that Keir the Traitor Starmer is a sectarianist bastard who would rather protect Islam versus his civic duty of protecting all of the British people. We've already seen that clear as day. So it stands to reason why he's abjectly terrified of people like Tommy Robinson being able to galvanise the British people and get tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people marching on the streets in his name. And it's not even just in his name anymore at this point, and he prefers it not to be. It's not just about him, it's about the entire nation. It is about British people who care about their country coming together and saying enough is enough. It is about them coming out and saying, Keir the Traitor Starmer, we're not putting up with your shit anymore. And the more people who find out about this movement, this uniting the kingdom movement, the more people are going to tell more of their friends. It's going to be a domino/butterfly effect. He's been to the movements, or he knows about the movement, so he mentions it to her, who mentions it to her group of friends, who mention it to their group of friends, blah blah blah. As said, butterfly/domino effect. And if we get this message out there that ideally I want this to be peaceful, but if we get the idea out that we're a peaceful movement, that we want the best for our country, it's going to be a day of celebration, unlike the NPCs in the pro-Palestine movement that would rather attack the police, that the media would rather say is mostly peaceful before they go out of their way to attack people. But if we get this idea out, It's going to be a massive success. Keir the Traitor Starmer is going to do every single thing he can, every dirty, unscrupulous tactic in the book. He is going to try and pull to make this rally fail. Because if this succeeds, he isn't just going to get punched in the gut by this, metaphorically speaking, of course. He's going to get kicked in the nuts with it as well. And he is going to be begging for it to end. He cannot hope to God, if he believes in that this is going to end well for him if this protest does well. He will be in a position where his position as MP will be all but untenable, unsustainable. I do fully support Richard Inman. I do support Maya Toosey. You know who I always support. The only thing I will say is that we have got, as said, 2 to 5 months tops to make this work. As I've mentioned before, and we'll mention here again, there are some people you just can't talk to. If peaceful protest doesn't work in the next 2 to 5 months, or 2 or 3 protests tops, this is probably going to descend into anarchy. It's something I don't want, and obviously the people who I support don't want. Tommy Robertson, Maya Toosey, Paul Thorpe, etc., etc. But there are times where we have to accept that people are going to do what they want. That's the cold, bitter truth. Hitler did as he wished. We told him, do not invade Poland. He went and did it anyway. And then we had that bloody war that went on, World War II, that cost millions of lives on both sides. Now, I don't want a violent revolution. Let me be absolutely clear. I don't want violence. I don't want crimes being committed. I won't advocate for that shit. What I will say, however, is that if the traitorous establishment does not accept peaceful resolution, then you know what the alternative is. And it's not pancakes or cookies and ice cream and what have you. It's going to be civil war. And I've mentioned it before. I will happily support Maya Toosey and all those people. I will happily do it. The only thing I've said I wouldn't do is sign the pledge. That's it. And the only reason I won't do that is literally because I don't want to pigeonhole or tunnel vision myself into one thing. I've made my thing quite clear. But if Richard Inman or Paul Thorpe or whoever want to personally contact me, if they want to contact me and try to debate this and say, you know what, I think you're wrong for not signing the pledge because of X, Y, and Z, I'll happily have a debate with them. I will happily debate Paul Thorpe or Richard Inman or whoever about the pledge. And if they can convince me, I'll change my mind. But the reason I don't want to sign it, just as a general overview, is simply because I fundamentally believe that if I sign this pledge, it's basically like an NDA agreement. Only instead of obviously the non-disclosure part, it'll be along the lines of, if you sign this pledge, you won't be able to take any other actions other than peaceful ones. And as I said, I'll be absolutely clear, I don't want violence, I don't want a violent revolution, but I do want my options open. And I think the most prominent part of it is how I describe it as, I don't want it to take my sword away, if you will. I don't want it to disarm me, basically. So if you've got those people imagining World War II again, you've got the people charging at you with their intent to kill, with their bayonets and what have you. I don't want to be unable to defend myself against these people, because I can tell you, if it was down to that and their intent was to kill and what have you, I don't think George Orwell is going to work anymore. Thank you. As far as history is concerned, history does not take kindly to traitors. It does not take kindly to politicians who want to piss taxpayer money up the wall. The peasant tax revolts and what happened to King Charles I should be a very prominent example of that. King Charles went and pissed our taxpayer money up the wall to fund illegal wars, or to fund wars, which people didn't want. So the people took action, and then you know what happened with his head. So it stands to reason that the British people will eventually get fed up with this shit. And if they feel like they can't get a peaceful resolution, then you know the alternative. But As far as the pledge is concerned, as I said, I'm happily willing to speak with Richard Inman, have a debate with Richard Inman, or Paul Thorpe, or whoever on this. I'll put my email in the description below, as I've always done with all my other videos. And if they want to try and convince me, I'm open-minded. I'm open-minded to that shit. So if you want to try it, by all means. That's the way I look at it. I'm not this bigoted arsehole. I'm not this person who is like, oh, my opinion's right and fuck everyone else. No, far from it. I'm willing to listen to Richard Inman. And if he can convince me, I will happily change my mind. And I'll happily sign it. But the way I slice it is, as I said, the main contention point, the biggest point I have right now is that I feel like it would be taking my sword away. And I want to be able to defend myself, quite frankly. Remember, I consider violent revolution as an absolute last resort. Consider it like pushing the button that launches the nukes. It is an absolute last resort, in my opinion. When diplomacy fails, then it all goes to war. That's the way I look at it. But I'll tell you what really bothers me. King Charles III, or second, or whatever his fucking number is, I don't give a shit, to be honest. It's just a numerical stroke number 2. It's a number at this point. It's basically a number to me. But King Charles has broken his own rules as far as not getting involved in politics. And so at this point, it should stand to reason, if he's willing to get involved in politics, how about you dissolve Parliament? How about you dissolve Parliament? Because you can clearly see Keir the Traitor Starmer is dragging this country into the mire, dragging it into the depths. Surely you have to see that. Surely you have to see that Keir the Traitor Starmer will go through all the motions to make sure this country is either destroyed or Islamified. That's the way I look at it. But that's something, of course, the mainstream media don't want to tell you. I mean, we can clearly see the number of mosques growing in this country where these intolerant barbarians are allowed to preach their hateful narrative. Do you see Christians going out of their way to preach their hateful narrative? I'm sure you'll find a few people who will try to proselytize to you and shove their opinions down your throat, I grant, but you won't find them preaching that we need to go to war with people or that we should be intolerant of other people. No, you won't. You'll never find them do it, but Islam does it all the fucking time. And King Charles, he's been in power, or been our king, for some time, so why doesn't His Majesty decide to dissolve the Parliament and make sure that people like Keir the Traitor Starmer can't drag us down to the depths of hell? I suspect he won't. That's probably the cold bit of truth. But one can hope that maybe one day Charles III or II or whatever his bloody number is will wake up and actually dissolve this Parliament. Because at the end of the day, a Parliament with Keir the Traitor Starmer in power as our Prime Minister is never going to be a good one. Never. But ultimately, what this boils down to is the supposed far right, or ordinary people and patriots who just care about the country. We need to all unite. We need to all stop with our individual parties. We need to all come together, form one party, one coalition, one group of people that can challenge the establishment narrative and the mainstream media narrative and say, we, the British people, have had enough. We've had enough of the treachery, the deceit, the dishonesty, the sabotage, the crimes that they have committed, both against our country and others. We need to say to them, we've had enough of Keir the Traitor Starmer trying to drag our country into the mire and piss our taxpayer money up the wall, paying 9 to 18 million pounds a day to illegal immigrants who have no right to be here, or sending 600 million pounds to Ukraine to people who basically are going to enjoy their high life while all the other poor sods are going to suffer. When is Keir the Traitor Starmer going to finally realise that he cannot He cannot stay in his position as Prime Minister. Or better still, when are his MPs going to finally have the balls, whether up here or down there, or in my case both, to actually have a vote of no confidence and take out the trash, metaphorically speaking, of course? Because that's all it takes at this point. Either he resigns, his party kicks him out of power through a vote of no confidence, or King Charles wakes up and actually dissolves Parliament. That's how we get our country back. Or at least start to get our country back. We also need to leave the ECHR, the European Court of Human Rights. But once we do that, we're in a good position. But in order to do that, we need to send a message on the 26th of October in London, 10 Downing Street. We don't know the starting position yet, but what we do know is it will end up outside 10 Downing Street, and we will send a message to Keir the Traitor Starmer. We will come along in unity to celebrate a day of happiness and unity and being British, and we are going to voice our contempt towards Keir the Traitor Starmer. And if I do get the chance to speak up on stage, that would be fucking fantastic. I'm not going to hold my breath over it. I'm not expecting to be up there, but it would be a dream come true again, and it would allow me to finally put out a real speech. Not just, oh, they didn't want me to attend, but I attended anyway, like at Salford. No. I want a real speech. One that will blow the fucking houses down. Metaphorically speaking, of course. Or maybe I could say I'm using Koto Shugametsu, you know, the art of oral annihilation. Anyway, I would love that opportunity to be able to actually show my absolute disdain, my hatred, my contempt towards the establishment. Because they deserve it, quite frankly. And not because of malicious intent, but because of their actions against the people. So you know what? Let's be there. 26th of October. Everyone unite. Doesn't matter what party you're in, what your colour of your skin is, what religion you are. You could be black, white, green, purple, blue, gold, or whatever. I don't care. Because the one thing you'll notice about Tommy Robinson's rallies is they're never not diverse. Never. We have people from all walks of life, women, children, boys, girls, men, women. We have people that are black, we have people that are white, we have people who are Sikh, Hindu, actually, I haven't seen a Hindu person, but I wish I did. But basically, we see all colours and creeds and sexes and ages unite on a day of celebration. Whereas the renter mob in the left wing, you'll be lucky if you hear some decent tunes while they just say Nazi scum off our streets, which should be considered slander at this point, considering it is basically calling people the people who killed millions of Jews in World War II. It should be considered libelous defamation of character, libelous slander. But that's media won't tell you that. Of course they won't. But they will be lucky if they can drum up a single tune. Whereas Tommy has singers, he has guitarists, he has even people playing the piano. And we just have a good sing-along, everyone hugs each other. That's the thing. Our protests are a thing of celebration. The left-wing protests and the pro-plasticine protests, they're all about basically waging war against us. That's the long and short of it. So let's be there on the 26th, uniting the kingdom. All colours and creeds, all religions, all ages, all sexes, coming together and having a day of celebration and showing their contempt for Keir the Traitor Starmer. Because at the end of the day, he is a man who is not fit for purpose. And if a man or woman is not fit for purpose, then they have no right standing in a position of such power, pulling our country down into the icy depths below.